Good evening, dear listeners. Tonight, under the cloak of darkness and the quiet stars, we travel back in time to a pivotal moment in history, the final days of the Empire of Japan during World War II. This is the story of the Kyūjō conspiracy. Now close your eyes, relax, and let history's tide carry you back to the year 1945. It was August 15th, 1945. The day marked the culmination of what became known as the Kyūjō conspiracy. Japan, once a colossus striding across Asia, lay battered from over 3 years of total war against the Allies. The war had exacted a grim toll. Some 50,000 aircraft lost, 3,000 tanks destroyed, and a fleet reduced by over 300 vessels, including 19 carriers and 8 battleships. On the human scale, the devastation was even more staggering. 2 million Japanese soldiers had died, alongside an uncountable number of civilians. The war in the Pacific, a fierce and bloody confrontation, had sapped the strength of the mighty Japanese Empire. By late July, the terms of the Potsdam Declaration had been issued by the United States, Britain, and China, demanding unconditional surrender from Tokyo. The Soviet Union's recent entry into the war promised only to widen the conflict and hasten Japan's demise. By early August, even the divine Emperor Hirohito sensed the inevitable and began urging his government to find terms for surrender. Prime Minister Kantaro Suzuki, along with his military cabinet, often referred to as the Big Six, conceded the reality of defeat. It was settled. The emperor would formally announce Japan's capitulation over the radio at noon on August 15th. However, the night before this planned announcement, a desperate gambit unfolded. Major Kenji Hatanaka, a young and zealous officer of Japan's war ministry, spearheaded a coup to overthrow the government. His cohort, driven by a blind nationalist fervor, sought to prevent the emperor's broadcast and continue the war at any cost. They believed that if they could topple the current regime, the Japanese people would rally to their cause and fight to the bitter end. The coup began just after midnight. Hatanaka, alongside a select group of officers, seized control of the Kyūjō, the emperor's palace. They dispatched the divisional commander of the palace guard when he refused to join their plot, and frantically searched for the recording of Hirohito's speech meant to be broadcast in mere hours. Yet the extensive damage from Allied bombings, which had caused widespread power outages, thwarted their efforts to find it. Realizing their initial plan had failed, Hatanaka sent his men on a wild chase to Yokohama to assassinate Prime Minister Suzuki. The attempt was futile. Suzuki remained beyond their grasp. By dawn, as other army units began closing in to quash the rebellion, the conspirators' resolve crumbled and they scattered. Unyielding, Hatanaka raced to the headquarters of NHK, Japan's national broadcaster, pistol in hand, desperate to issue a call to arms over the airwaves. But he was barred entry, his pleas ignored. Last seen riding through the shattered streets of Tokyo on a motorcycle, he flung leaflets that urged resistance among the war-weary populace. As the morning sun rose, painting the sky a blood-stained scarlet, the major, realizing the futility of his cause, ended his own life. An hour later, Hirohito's pre-recorded message of surrender echoed across Japan. Yet even after the emperor's voice called for peace, pockets of resistance lingered. In the remote Shimane prefecture, a young ultra-nationalist named Isao Okazaki, who had previously been imprisoned for his extremist views, led what became known as the Matsue incident. With a band of 40 loyalists, Okazaki seized key installations in the city of Matsue only days before American forces were scheduled to arrive. Their last stand was brief. Surrounded by police and soldiers, they surrendered without further bloodshed. But the echoes of defiance resonated for years. Across the vast stretches of the Pacific, isolated groups of Japanese soldiers, unaware or unwilling to accept the surrender, continued to resist. On Saipan, Palalyu, Iwo Jima, and even in the Marianas, these holdouts waged guerrilla wars, some for years, against the American occupiers. The most famous among them, Lieutenant Hiroo Onoda, remained at his post in the Philippines until 1974, refusing to surrender until he received direct orders from his commanding officer. Even decades after the official end of World War II, stories emerged of lone soldiers emerging from jungles and mountains, flags of truce fluttering in their hands. The tale of Captain Nakahara, believed to be the last of these holdouts, symbolizes the enduring spirit of those times. In 1980, a team set out to the Philippine island of Mindoro to find him, discovering only his hut and the echoes of a war long ended. Thank you, dear listeners, for tuning in to today's story. How did you find today's tale? Please let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story, support me by liking and sharing.